Good morning, all of you.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the second session of the big day of 6-day FDP, organized by Sir Dr. MSGCOPER College of Pharmaceutical Education and Research in collaboration with MHRD, SPPU Pune. In fact, I already told you in morning, today is the big day because we're going to hear very big personalities in a 6-day long FDP in today's 3 sessions. This is the second session of FDP, 4th day. Dr. Prashant Kharkar is the speaker of this session. Intentionally, we invited Dr. Vandana Patravale ma'am as a chief guest of this session because she is guru for us, at least for pharmaceutics discipline, as well as she was the teacher of Dr. Prashant too. So I welcome Dr. Patravale ma'am also. She will guide us in afternoon session, sharp by 2 p.m. I welcome ma'am. I welcome Dr. Prashant. Dr. Prashant is MPharm and PhD in technology. He is working as professor in medicinal chemistry at Department of Pharmaceutical Science and Technology, Institute of Chemical Technology, ICT, Mumbai. It is quite difficult to cover biodata in very small time, 2 or 3 minutes, for a person like Dr. Prashant. He completed his PhD in 2003 from ICT Mumbai and MPharm from the same institute, the India's most reputed institute, in the year 2000. And I am very happy to share Dr. Prashant is B.Pharm graduate of Nashik College, NDMUP College of Pharmacy, Nashik. His research area is medicinal chemistry, computer-aided molecular design, biomedical science, drug discovery in metabolic disorders, cancer, pain, inflammation, etc. in the lead identification and optimization of stages. Dr. Prashant contributed a lot to the field of pharmacy. Dr. Prashant has reached 17 years of experience in the field of pharmacy. He served as associate professor in various pharma institutions like NMIMS Mumbai, and recently, before 6 months back only, he joined ICT Mumbai. Before that, he served with various pharma industries in various positions. He published 55 publications, 55 papers in Journal of Repute at national and international level. He filed and published 8 patents. He wrote 6 book chapters, and around 45 published abstracts are there in the name of Dr. Prashant. He grabbed around 1.9 crore rupees grant from government and industrial agencies. He received industrial consultancy of rupees 24 lakhs. Dr. Prashant is reviewer of various journals like Science Translational Medicine, Journal of Medicinal Chemistry, European Journal of Medicinal Chemistry, Nucleosides, Nucleotide and Nucleic Acid, Molecular Pharmaceutics, Future Medicinal Chemistry, Expert Opinion on Drug Metabolism and Toxicology. He served as research person in various conferences, workshops, and seminars at national and international level. Dr. Prashant is member of APTI, ACS, and IPA. With this, I welcome Dr. Prashant. I would like to share a quote for Dr. Prashant. Dr. Prashant, when I see you, I realize one quote of Nufiaza. It is, be energetic, be happy, be kind, be generous, be helpful, let positivity run in your veins and charge your life with lots of brightness. I am thankful to Dr. Prashant for accepting an invitation In fact, he was not ready with the presentation at evening 6 p.m. And his presentation is most innovative presentation I saw till date in last 13, 14 years of my academic experience. I welcome Dr. Prashant. Welcome, please. Now I am sharing the screen with Dr. Prashant. Please, sir.
Um, Thank you so much, Dr. Prashant, for your kind introduction. It's always a pleasure to to hear from you and do something or other, contribute in some way with whatever activities you are carrying out for the pharma teachers, pharma fraternity in Nasik area as well as in Maharashtra in general. So today I will be talking about writing research proposals, tips, tricks, and perspectives. Dr. Vandana's presentation few days ago on the APTI forum, where she spoke about research grants like the funding agencies and the opportunities available. She has already shared that presentation, and many of the teachers would probably have access to that already. But I'll still forward it to Dr. Prashant if he doesn't have it, and I request him to share it with everyone because that's the most updated presentation in terms of what all opportunities are there. Although some of the calls they have already closed, but then the presentation is awesome and one should have it. So that's where I decided that I would be talking or rather sharing my experiences on writing research proposals, some of the tricks and tips which I have learned all these throughout these like all these years, and provide a broad perspective. But before I start my presentation, acknowledgements. I thank the organizers of the FDP, Principal Dr. Amrutkar, Dr. Prashant, as well as the scientific community to be able to, which enabled me to, to talk about whatever little I know in this area. Before I start, few disclaimers. This is the first time I'm putting disclaimers like this. First thing is the views, ideas, and opinions expressed in this webinar are solely mine. I have not quoted anyone, or rather, I have not taken anything from Google for that matter, except the last, like penultimate slide. There is a picture. That's the only thing which I have taken from Google. And like Dr. Prashant said, the presentation was not ready till yesterday, like 6 p.m. And he was after me for sharing the presentation so that he could prepare the quiz. So I had to sit and prepare the presentations. Anyways, I would have done it. Resemblance to the content available is purely coincidental. I have tried to use some of the examples from my own research proposals without disclosing the actual content. Just for the illustration purpose. The next one is one has to be intelligent, if not cautious, while interpreting and implementing the tips and tricks of for one's use. Whatever views, tips, and tricks which have been given in this webinar, in this presentation, they are from my own experience, and it's not. Some of these will definitely be applicable to you. So one has to interpret intelligently what I have to say, and how it fits to your situation for that matter, like the research proposal which you are trying to write or trying to work on. This is probably the most important one. One has to find the answers to the difficult questions raised in the webinar genuinely, ethically, and with great integrity. I hear from several of my friends a lot of ill practices go on everywhere, particularly in small colleges. So and that's where when it comes to ethics and integrity, one has to stick to that. When you're doing research, when you are in research, these are probably the most important components. And probably you have heard Dr. Mishra some time ago talking about ethics, and Geeta yesterday also talking about ethics. So yeah, So there are a lot of questions, and everywhere I have put I, so that as if you are asking these questions to yourself, so that you are the because you are the best person to find these find the answers to these difficult questions. So with this, I'll start my first question. Very important question, I would say, the most important, rather. Why do I intend to write a research proposal? Right. So many people have many reasons to write research proposals. Um, I have some probable answers, like probably your answer will be one of these answers, or it could be very different than whatever is listed here. But again, whatever answers which are listed here are not exclusive, in the sense they are not objective. There could be many of these answers applicable to your situation, because some of these are kind of generic ones. The first one being the scientific rigor, which you say, I wish to change fundamental beliefs in science. Perfect, because that's what a researcher, a passionate researcher, would always be in pursuit for. So you want to change fundamental beliefs in science, not just for changing it for the sake of changing it, but to question the age old beliefs, where people said something, and somehow you think that it's not right. There has to be other angle to the story, and that's where you want to explore it further. The next one is, there is an unmet need, could be medical need, could be any other need, for some common problems as well. In current situation, COVID-19, yes, we need therapeutics, we need diagnostics, we need new vaccines, we need new preventive measures for COVID-19. So this could be situational, for sure. The next one is, and this is probably applicable to all the research proposals, so probably a more generic answer. I need money for research so that I establish myself in a focused research area. So financial reasons, of course, for good research you need a good amount of money, and that's where things get things start becoming difficult. So you need a lot of money for good research, and that's where one has to write more and more research proposals, take chances, be more explorative, so that you get good money for focusing for focused research, right? This is again more generic. I need a promotion. So if you are an assistant professor, you need to become, eventually you need to promote it to associate, and for professor. So for professional development, but at times once you are at a position like a professor, where there probably may not be any further raise, but you still need to live up to your name, being a professor, to do research, to do some world class research. So this is one of the things for sure. This one is again kind of more generic. Now that Dr. Amrutkar is here, he would definitely ask every of his faculty, and this is probably true for all the principals, all the HODs, that the faculty should write more and more research proposals, so that the institute gets funding, and then the overall stature of the institution increases, and everyone wants that, and that's a fair expectation, because that's how the institutions are in a way ranked or judged. So this is a fair job expectation, that the faculty should write research proposals and get some funding and do some world class research, right? The next question is, again, this is one of the most important, probably, as in there is no particular order, but then you may find the first one more important than the second one, or the second one more important than the first one. But that is immaterial. The question is, what is the problem I am likely to solve or address with my research proposal, right? So this question will bring out some more small yet relevant related questions. Is my research going to address a common man's problem? So that's for societal benefits, obviously, the societal angle. It's like gone are the days where you get away with doing some academic research with no accountability, no use. You get a lot of papers, and then that's it. You get promotions, you get known for what you have done, but then what has like how has society benefited from your research? So that's the fundamental question anybody would want to ask you. But nowadays funding agencies are also they've changed their outlook, and this is a fair expectation as well, that how is your research changing a common man's life? I think this is probably the most important of all these questions. If I'm not doing anything for the society, I shouldn't be doing any research for that matter. The next one is it doable in a reasonable time frame? So time factor, of course, this is very important, as in you may have world class idea, it's like going to moon, but if you can't do it in a reasonable time frame, so if you say that in next 50 years I will go to moon, uh, but then that will be irrelevant, so that's where even for COVID-19, people, Novartis CEO said that the vaccine will probably be a reality in next 2 years, but then there is a practical angle to that, and it's a reasonable time frame. So this is important thing you should ask when you are writing a research proposal or thinking of writing a research proposal. The next important thing is, will it train a student, say for his or her PhD? Now this is again, at times people are not so careful, as in the early career researchers, but this is a very very important thing. How are you training your future generation? Like we always say that there has been a decline in science overall in students, partly there are many reasons, and in some way some teachers are also responsible for this, like all teachers for that matter. Like some teachers are really good, but then those who are not, so the problem is, if you don't train the future generations, the science or the technological prowess of the country is not going to go anywhere. So this is a great responsibility to train a student, say for his or her PhD, and funding agencies are also very keen on this. Nowadays there are so many funds, a lot of funds are available. The salaries of postdocs, research associates, project assistants, they're like really cool salaries. That is just to attract the talent, brilliant students to come and pursue a PhD. And of course, this post COVID-19, a lot of things are going to change, already changing for that matter. The next one is, will it build infrastructural capability at my institution? Again, this is very important. If you are talking of good research, you need good instruments. Although there are a lot of government initiatives where they're creating clusters, where small institutions, researchers from small institutions can go and use, but nonetheless, you need some basic instrumentation, and that's where these funds can be extremely important. So. Capacity building is one of the related things when you are writing a research proposals. You should keep that in mind. And then most important in this section, will it advance science, knowledge building? So if you're doing a research and if it doesn't advance science in whatever field you are pursuing it, then it's of no use. So always ask this question to yourself: how is the science going to go, or they're going to get advanced with whatever problem I'm trying to solve, even what in whatsoever small way, right? So that's very very important. The next question is, how do you plan to carry out the proposed research? Now this is a big and vague question, and depending on your area of expertise, depending on what you want to do, there could be multiple answers to this. So I wouldn't try and answer to this question. Rather, I would highlight some of the important facets of which will lead to answer to this question. The first one is involvement of interested parties. Either you are doing it alone or it's a collaborative research. But I have purposely avoided in my presentation talking more about collaboration. Maybe I'll just give a broad perspective about collaborative research in the end, because I suppose, like I was given idea that many of the attendees of the FDP are early career researchers, pharma teachers who have just started their career. So I have focused my all the contents to to cater the needs of these early career researchers. And when it comes to collaboration, maybe after a project or two, you are ready to do collaborative research. But like they say, when it comes to collaborative research, so in early career you are like you are like an assistant director who is helping the director to make a film, and afterwards, once you gain good experience, you become the director yourself. You bring your own film. So it is very similar way that way. So you probably can become a co-pi, but then, like I said, I'll avoid discussion about collaboration right away. The next one is geography of the problem. So what problem you are trying to address, whether it is of local nature, national, or global level. So if you talk about COVID-19, it's a global emergency. Something related to national things like tuberculosis. Now there is we are probably number one in tuberculosis patients. That could be a national. A local problem could be. I'm sure you have heard about now, since you are from from the Nasik area or in Maharashtra in general. So there has been a virus or two who has been creating havoc as far as tomato crop is concerned. And people and it's a local problem. It's not everywhere. So probably in Nasik area or in Maharashtra in general, there is a virus on tomato which is kind of destroying the crop. So when I say local problem, sorry, if you try and come up with something which will save the crop from this virus, so then that could be a local problem. So you need not do hi-fi research right away. You can take a look at simple local problems and try to solve those problems, and in the process you will develop as a researcher, and then you can go to a next level, national as well as global level. Nature of the problem, so it's a simple problem, intermediate problem, or complex problem. So if you are an early career researcher, try with simple problems, and there are always enough problems, believe me. If you keep your eyes open, you eventually will find those problems and the obvious solutions to that. Then you slowly shift to intermediate problem, but then you don't have to follow this. If you come up with a more complex problem, and if you think you have got a solution or an idea to idea of the solution, then probably you can take it away right away, take it right away. Scale of the problem, a small problem or a big problem. So if you say COVID-19, it's a big problem. If you say tomato crop virus destruction, that's a small problem. So if both places viruses are involved, but the scale is big, so one has to think of this scale as well. And of course, time frame. It's like like I again said, you want to go to moon, but if you say that you do it in 50 years, that's not really going to help anybody for that matter. So you have to have solutions which are doable, and of course in the desirable time frame. But at times, like I said, some of your research could be exploratory in nature. In that case, even you don't know whether it will work, it will not work, but then you have to take the plunge, because unless you take it, you will not know whether, I mean, it doesn't work. And if the problem is really relevant, so unless somebody initiates the research, nothing is going to happen, right? So again, this is related to time frame: immediate, near future, or distant future. So developing a vaccine, probably it's for COVID-19, we need it immediately. But in distant future, probably you want some therapy which will avoid any and every emerging viral infection. So depending on the problem at hand, the time frame could be different, and that's where your research can be molded to suit the time frame. And of course, the next important thing would be the level of funding desired for addressing the problem with proposed solutions. So at times you need a startup grant, maybe from a university or maybe from your host institution, or it could be a big grant, maybe for clinical trials from a big funding agency like BIRAC or some other thing. So it again depends on what is the problem at hand and how much money you need to answer those questions. And then depending on the level of funding available, you might want to scale down the problem, maybe from addressing the whole problem you address part of it, maybe POC generation or so, because that's how it works. Whatever funding you get, you eventually mix and match the scale of the problem and the nature of the problem, and then try and find answers with your research. Then the next one is definitely very important: where to look for potential funding. And this is where Professor Patravale's presentation will come handy. Although I have tried to summarize in just one slide. It could be government funding agencies. She has probably 20 slides about government funding agencies with in great detail. So you should definitely refer to her presentation, the most updated one. International funding agencies, many of them, and nowadays there are no bounds. If you have got real groundbreaking ideas, you can, no matter where you are, you can essentially get an international funding as well. It's just you have to keep looking and keep working hard. Other one could be the startup grant from the university or the host institution to generate some preliminary data. Because unless if you have some preliminary data, then even the funders, the funding agencies will kind of believe in your idea, and then they probably will fund you. So generating preliminary idea or other preliminary data is extremely crucial for successful funding, and that's where one has to stay put and essentially do something to come up with some interesting thing. It's like unless you are convinced about your solution or the research, how do you expect others to get convinced? So that's where preliminary data acts as a bridge or linking between these two. You can also get funding from industry, small, medium size, from startups. Nowadays there are so many startups, and if you have got some groundbreaking ideas, probably people will come and fund you. It's just you need to keep talking to people, you need to keep talking, keep discussing to people who are gurus in our field, and then they'll definitely guide you. But at times we don't, we have our own things, and we don't open up, and we don't talk to people, and that's where many of the ideas are killed in the womb itself before they become before they see the light of the day. Other one would be private organizations, could be some hospitals, could be some NGOs. So at times, we keep our thinking very limited only to say government funding agencies, and when it comes to industrial funding, we probably keep ourselves away because why should industry come to a rural pharmacy college and fund my project? So we have our own, we are limited by our own thoughts. But believe me, unless you kind of open up and explore, you will not know. There might be somebody who is interested in your groundbreaking or path-breaking idea or path-breaking research. And of course, there are a lot of passionate and rich individuals who possibly can fund your idea. Could be the MLA in your area, could be the survey server of your institution, group of institutions. Go and approach them, write to chief minister. I mean, I'm just telling you. I mean, you can potentially write to chief minister. But then what I'm trying to say is, unless you believe in your idea, unless you have that enthusiasm or passion in your research, people will fund not your idea but your passion. So open up, be passionate, try out, do things which are beyond what normal people would do, as in don't go and do something stupid. But then you can always try and explore thing. So after answering to these questions, you probably think you are ready. Say this is an example given for say COVID-19 pandemic. There is a situation we need urgently therapeutics, vaccine, diagnostic measures. Even for that matter, there are issues with N95 masks. There is shortage, so people are talking about reuse of N95 masks. So you can do anything related to that, even disposal of these masks, because that can potentially be dangerous if not done properly. So there is an opportunity. There are many opportunities for that matter, where one can talk about and explore. You don't really have to, as in, don't think that I'm not a COVID expert. Nobody is, for that matter, because it's just I mean, the disease itself is like 4 or 5 months old. How do you expect to be someone, a COVID-19 expert? But then, you are, as a researcher, you probably have some brilliant ideas, and you can, use your expertise, your knowledge to, to these to solve problems related to COVID-19. And because this is the area is so hot, probably you might just get lucky. The probability is very high. Probability of success is very high. So there have been COVID-19 fast track calls, like the call opens on 21st of April, it closes on 1st of May. So you need to keep looking for these calls. Because there is a situation, and of course, because it is so very urgent, so there are expedited proposal reviews in like 1 month or 15 days. They come up with answers, otherwise they take like 6 months. And then the scale of funding, they won't probably think of funding you with like 1 or 2 crores. So the scale of funding, and then of course there are various schemes. And then people have opened up their shells. There are free resources available, including softwares, literature, for helping researchers to find solutions in record-breaking time frame. Some of the people, like there's one paper in Nature from UCSF researchers. They came up with around 60 drugs for repurposing, and they said that they did not file a patent, so that they wanted this data to be available to anybody and everybody, so that solutions to this problem are found quickly. So that's a very novel thought. So the point is, there are free resources available. So everything is there. The meal is ready. You just have to eat it, for that matter. And then this is bothersome. Submission deadlines are so close spaced. One has to be on the visual, and you have to act very very fast. It's like 1 month, and there are like 10 funding calls. So you are on the edge to finish one proposal after the other, right? So I will now start with some of the tips and tricks which I have learned the hard way. I would say, of course, I learned from my teachers, but then, like I said, when it comes to proposal writing and about your own research area, nobody can teach you, not even this webinar for that matter. But then, of course, webinars like this can definitely show some path, and you can definitely learn something. So that's where we are. And like I said, I'm sharing my own experiences. The first tip: be very thorough about the utility of the proposed research. Like I said, unless the research has to be of use to, say, the general public, probably you will not be funded. So you need to be very thorough about utility of the proposed research. You need to open up, as in, don't just think of the conventional applications. Read about the unconventional applications or out of the world applications, and that's how you can you can enlarge the scope of whatever approach you develop, or whatever solution you come up with. And while doing this, don't fake the utility or falsely create it. As in, at times we are too overstating. In that case, people can know, as in the expert reviewers of your grant will definitely know that you are faking it. Don't do that. Be true to whatever is available in the literature, whatever you know, whatever your perspective about that particular area. The trick, back it up with the latest literature reports from reputed journals and other sources. Now, this is probably very, very important, as in, people are going to believe you if you cite the latest literature. As in, if you talk about some research and quote a reference of 2012, which probably is not applicable today, it probably will not help. And then, of course, the relevant statistics is very, very important. It's like you're writing some proposal, say, on breast cancer to National Funding Agency, and then you are giving US statistics because some paper had it handy. It's not going to help you. You need to find out the national statistics to, if it is related to, say, Maharashtra or some state particular. So find out that state statistics. It may not be available, but at least there will be some clue, maybe some newspaper clips, maybe some bite on the radio or somewhere. So you need to quote that and come up with the don't falsify the statistic just to create the emergency. As in, don't do anything wrong for sure. Like I said, do not give US government data, because most of the papers you see, they'll always talk about US without mentioning that it's a US data. But then one has to be careful about interpreting this kind of data. So you need to very very understand what is the utility of the proposed research, and how is the need, because the need is going to define how urgent or how relevant the solution is, and that's where you increase the probability of getting your project funded, your proposal funded. um, Now, coming to this, there's an example here from my own proposal, which I recently submitted to some funding agency. Now, again, this is, I'm not saying this is the best, but at least something which will help you. Emerging viral infections such as SARS, MERS, COVID-19, and the resultant pandemic have debilitating and decapitating effects on the humanity. Such dreadful trends since the dawn of the 21st century have made us realize how helpless we are in combating these threats to mankind. We need to be ready with an armamentarium of broad spectrum agents which will be effective for a long period. Now, you see, this was for COVID 19, but if you see, right from the first SARS outbreak in 2012 and the MERS in 2012, people have not done much in terms of many of the things, many of the small molecule therapeutics, and even for that matter vaccines, they just stalled because the disease did not appear in near future by then. And that's where we are in a situation, despite having SARS outbreak in 2002, we still don't have an effective therapy for that, even for that matter MERS. So you need to talk about how this research is going to be helpful. Now, there will be threats of such emerging viral infections in future as well. So this statement is just an example how you can how your research is going to be really helpful for the masses or for the nation or for the globe in general. The next tip is read the RFP, request for proposal carefully. Now, this is very, very important. At times, we are so excited. I mean, at least I have done that many times. I've missed important points. Like I said, many of these things I have learned it the hard way, which probably I'm just lazy, kind of, I guess. That's why. But anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is don't misinterpret it. If you don't understand a particular thing, ask the program coordinator, because these RFPs, at the end of it, there will be at least the email address or the phone number of the program coordinator to whom you can definitely ask questions. And don't go on shooting emails like every 2 hours. Wait for their answer, because if you piss them off, they'll remember you forever in the wrong way, right? So don't do that. And even don't call them unless it is urgently, or unless you are in dire need. Of course, you can do that maybe towards the submission deadline, and something is not working, some technical issues. Keep visiting the funding agency website for timely updates, such as extension of deadlines. Many times this happens, early closure or revisions in RFP, right? So I mean, don't just many times we receive email from funding agencies which talk about new funding opportunities. Don't just dependent on these emails. Keep on visiting these funding agencies. There are many, but then at least the ones which are applicable to you, you can keep on visiting regularly. Plan your work related to proposal writing and compilation so that you can finish well ahead of the deadline. Don't wait till the deadline. Although the performance of the portals have been phenomenal, but then you don't really want to be waiting till the last minute and increase the adrenaline rush in your body. So don't do that. Finish it like at least 2 or 3 days ahead and submit it. Doesn't matter. If you can't do anything, if you are not able to do something in last 1 month, nothing is going to probably happen in next 2 3 days. So don't wait. If you are satisfied, just finish it. So this one is um, uh, uh, again, this is from one of the latest calls from CSIR, where I said, read the RFP very carefully. So here, in the oval shape, it is highlighted. CSIR invites industry and startups to submit challenge-driven R&D proposals. So when I read this RFP, I understand that it's probably for the startups. So if as an academician, if I have to write a proposal, I have to take help of some startup or somebody who has that kind of work, or like who are involved in that kind of work. So the point is, you need to read every single word of the RFP very clearly, very cleverly, and then interpret it very cleverly. So that's very important, because at times it's sometimes it is difficult to interpret as well. And if you are an early career researcher who hasn't really experienced something like that before, it becomes altogether quite difficult. But nonetheless, you can always ask to people, right? The next tip is for online submissions, register immediately. Don't wait till you think you are ready for the submission. What I do is I immediately register. I mean, if you're doing it for the first time, it's a one-time process. You have to register. If not already registered, and know the submission portal. I mean, earlier it used to be hard copy proposals, but nowadays it's all online submission. Most of them either by email, sending it by email, or going to the portal and fill in the information. Don't assume that everything will work out without any technical slack. So this is where you need to be very, very careful. Start visit the portal, fill in some dummy information, because unless you complete one section you can't go to the next section. And even if you fill dummy information, maybe say hi, bye, something like that, it will allow you to go to the next section. But in the process, you will know the portal, different sections of the portal, and you will anticipate what all problems you essentially can possibly encounter. Go till the last submission page, and eventually you will know it all. Download the templates or formats, as in don't at times many funding agencies, what they say in the portal and what they have in the template formats, at times there could be discrepancy. Sometimes they might not have updated it. So it's always a good idea to go to the portal in that particular call, and then download relevant templates, and then make them ready. So this one is from, I think, SCRB, which says certificate from the investigators, PI and all co-PIs. Now here in the last it says this document has to be signed by all investigators, PI and co-PIs. So if you have co-PIs situated in different parts of the country, and every institute have their own norms. In our institute, we just walk in Professor Pandit's cabin, our vice chancellor, and he would sign right away. But that may not be the case in other institutions, where somebody would want to the director would want to see the full proposal right away. So you have to, the point is, you have to be ready well ahead of time when it comes to taking signatures and doing things. Now in this other endorsement from the head of the institution, if you see, it says register of university or head of the institution, head of the organization, or principal of college. So here again one has to be one has to interpret this carefully, and then suppose if the head of the institute is not available for some reason, then you might want to go to the registrar of the university or head of the organizations. And in fact, in COVID-19, the SCRB in one case said that if you cannot get it endorsed from the head of the institution because of lockdown, you can sign it yourself and submit it. So even funding agencies understand this, but the point is you need to understand whose signature you would be needing, and you should be ready well ahead of time. Some of the directors, principals are really very nice. They would sign right away because they trust you, even if the proposal is not ready. But then you have to live up to their trust in you, belief in you. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it. The Now this section is about the proposal writing. The first one was the pre-submission tips. This one is proposal writing, when you have registered, and then now essentially you are ready to write the proposal. So the next tip is, for online submission, start putting things right away on the portal. Now you may differ from what I am saying here. Some people are more comfortable doing it offline and then cut and paste in the portal right away. But why work twice? I usually do it right away. If it is a BIREC presentation, a BIREC call, it's very good. Even SCRB for that matter, I start putting things right away, and then keep on saving the draft, because the one important thing is it will tell you about the formatting requirements. Because at times, so say if it is a summary, it will tell you finish it in like 250 words. Then you are every for A and the also you are trying to struggle deleting those so that you can include more words, which make more which adds more meaning to the overall say summary for that matter. So what I'm trying to tell you is start doing it in the portal right away, which will tell you about the formatting requirements. The trick is, so before you start writing, you already have read the literature thoroughly. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if you are trying to put it in the portal itself, so your background work is already done, the literature is done, and then you are ready to very the thought process is completely frozen. You are listed out all the relevant literature, and then you exactly know what you want to write, and then go on writing there. You can always modify till you hit the final submit button. So the objectives, the milestone, the deliverables. So you would have done. So I assume that you have done all this background work before you start writing in the portal itself. So again, the word of caution is the proposed work should not be too ambitious or too simple. Meaning at times we lose track of what is possible in the given time frame with the possible or the amount of money, because say SCRB call was like 25 lakhs max. So if I say that I want to do a clinical trial for that drug, 25 lakhs, it's not possible. So that's where one has to do the calculations properly. I mean, don't be too ambitious in putting too many things in the less time frame, in the less amount of money, because that's not what the experts are expecting from you. Whatever you propose, it has to be, there has to be a reasonable literature, suppose reasonable, rational, and the expert should be convinced that it is doable in the given time frame. So one has to be careful about that. This is an example from, I think this is from the feast grant. I just took it randomly from the EPMS, the DST portal, just to show you the sections. So it says project title. Sometimes the project title should not exceed like 250 characters. Special characters are not allowed. Then in the project summary, it will tell you, see, the word limit is 2000, and it tells you have to enter objective, methodology, outcomes, key questions, hypothesis, and application. So going to portal and doing things right away will help you in understanding what are the expectations, and you can save a lot of time in going back and forth if you're doing it offline. Then comes project summary, and these red star indicates that it's a compulsory section. And then when it comes to academic area, you can always look at the drop down menu, draw and see what all options are there and what is applicable to you without having guesswork. If you're not clear, you can always ask the program coordinator or somebody who has submitted that proposal before. The next one is title should be catchy. This is again very important. It should not be too catchy. It should not be too simple, and it should convey the essence of what the proposed research is to the reviewers. And sometimes you may have a limit of 250 characters in the in the title, so one has to take a abide by all those requirements, rules. And then so it's a good idea to use keywords from the RFP itself. So this is very, very important. If you have those keywords which are related to the mission statement of the scheme or call, so these keywords if you include in the title, then that probably will make some impact in terms of getting the attention of the reviewer. There's no guarantee that it will be funded, but at least it will get the reviewers interested in reading your proposal seriously. An example from my own uh, proposal which was submitted recently, a multi-pronged strategy with, I wouldn't say what that is, otherwise you would right away know. But then the point is, this is again still active, it is still under review, so I wouldn't expose or rather disclose that. A multi-pronged strategy with some for antiviral and immune boosting effect. So the call was for say immunomodulatory activities or immunomodulation or immunoboosting effect. So a title like this will help. The other one is HIV-1 protease inhibitors for the treatment of COVID-19, something like that. So the point is, these are examples. The point is the title should be catchy so that you catch the attention of the reviewers, because at times they are given say at least 20 to 50 proposals. I mean, I have reviewed some of them, but then randomly, but Professor Patravali, she might be reviewing it very regularly, so I'm sure reviewers get many of them in one lot, maybe 20 proposals. So you can imagine their plight as well. So unless they'll probably read those proposals more seriously, if the title are really good, and then so you have to you have to generate or create interest so that people get interested in your proposal. The next one is the next section after title. Many times they will ask you to write summary. So it has to be, the summary has to be succinct, very very brief. You have to be very specific. Like I said, sometimes you have word limit of 250, so you will even struggle for a and the. You will try and remove those so that you can include more relevant terms. So be very specific, be very when you write the summary, and use the latest literature facts. I mean, don't use too many of them, otherwise you will exhaust the word limit. But then highlight on the need, approach of the proposed research, methodology, and outcome in brief way, maybe one or two sentences each. And don't forget to include a statement featuring how the proposed research is distinctly addressing the problem at hand, because unless you do so, probably you will not get it funded. Run of the mill projects, as in, so you have got some approach, say like anything, any approach. I don't want to name any specific one, but run of the mill projects are like you just replace the drug and apply the same approach. So those run of the mill projects are detected in this section only. And if if your work is not, if it is run of the mill, then probably the reviewer may not even read it further, because uh, it has to be, like I said, in some way advance science, advance our knowledge, what we knew before your proposal activities were done and what we know after that. So run of the mill projects you should avoid. The other day I was in University of Pune University, for evaluating uh, the I think university funding projects, and at least I would say 60% of the projects were run of the mill. There was no novelty as such, and then we had to definitely turn down such projects. So the point is, don't write proposal just for the sake of writing it. Always try and add some novelty or innovative component to that. It could be based on some run of the mill projects, but then what is the component of novelty? That's what the reviewer would always look for in your proposal, and it should be highlighted somewhere, if not in summary. uh, there are other sections as well, when it comes to, say, something like letter of intent, call for research, the call for proposals, request for proposals. Now here, a letter of intent, they would just want to screen the ideas, and at times the requirement are very small. You don't really need to write much. This one is from BIRAC, different sections. It will ask you to write idea briefly and with clear clarity. Then what is the aim of the proposal and how it is relevant to the scope of the present call. So always make a point whenever you write, say, aim of the proposal, or even for that matter objective. Try and include some text which will align whatever you are proposing with the scope of the call or that particular scheme. Previous experience of the PI and team members. Now, this is again very important, but if you are an early career researcher writing your first proposal, so you can still write what you did for your PhD or maybe for your masters, because many of the calls will ask you to have a PhD with as a minimum qualification. So assuming that you are a PhD, you can always write about your PhD experience. And team members could be collaborators who are with complementary expertise and who are likely to contribute to the project. So again, when it comes to selecting collaborators or team members, don't select collaborator just because he or she is your friend, or your spouse, or somebody whom you know. There has to be some rationale, some complementary expertise which will contribute to the project. So this is very important. Don't include your principal's name just because he asked you to do so. Don't do that unless he or she is contributing to your project. That's very important. One has to be very judicious in selecting team members. Then rationale of the idea. Has the preliminary work done so far? Now, this is again, like I said, this is the key for successful funding. If you have done if you have some preliminary data, people would be interested. I mean, the probability of funding gets increased with a very high percentage, I believe. My postdoc boss in Penn State in Michigan, he always he was the richest in the department. He had, like, at a time, two or three R1 grants. R1 is probably the very high level of funding where you get multi-million-dollar grants for like 3 years or so. So before he writes his next R1 grant, at least a year before he has the preliminary data ready, he would publish that data and essentially use that publication as the basis of funding, or rather of the proposal for the next R1 grant. So I definitely learned from him that preliminary data plays very important role, no matter how small it is. No matter, as in for COVID-19, probably nobody would have preliminary data when it comes to antiviral activity, but you can definitely have some backup literature where which can in a way extrapolate to COVID-19. As in, people wouldn't really ask you preliminary data, experimental preliminary data for COVID-19 right away, because nobody has it for that matter except few groups. So but you can always compile the some logic, do some modeling studies, or do some quick and dirty simulation experiments or something, which will in a way support the idea. Then of course the intellectual property, this is very important. One has to be very judicious about preserving the intellectual property or protecting the intellectual property. I'll probably share one or two tips in the towards the end. And then proposal objectives, activities and milestones, this is again most important, one of the most important sections. So that's where we would talk about. The next one talks about the national and international status. So at times, some funding agencies would definitely ask you what is happening internationally in that proposed research area or proposal, and national status. International, you will probably get a lot of papers and you will be able to do a job very nicely. But when it comes to national funding agencies, or rather national status, try and look for anything and everything which essentially has been done nationally. There may be areas where not much work has been done, but try and find out, because if it is a very niche area, so then it will go to people who have worked on this. And if they find that their work has not been included in the literature, they probably may not be interested in recommending your project. So this is very important, and in the process you will also know what is being done nationally, and who all are working, and you can include their names as reviewers, or because at times the funding agencies would ask about that. So you need to do that background work. You can use PubMed, Google, Patent Scope, and even the national labs websites who are kind of working in the area. So do not leave any stone unturned when it comes to finding out the national status of the proposed research. If the proposal asks you to do so, do not miss anything in this area. The next tip is about the objectives. I would again say it has to be very like some funding agencies will tell you have to have only like three objectives, but ideally between three to five is good enough. BIRAC calls, usually they say only three objectives. And again, when you write objectives, don't write too big objectives, as in make some simple sentences, and do not write too much, but then don't write trivial information. It has to be clear, it has to be very specific, and essentially you will come to know about you will learn about framing the objectives maybe after you are done with like two three proposals eventually, because in the beginning we are always confused as to what has to be written in the objectives. As in you know what you want to write in the objectives, but framing them a catchy objective, that's very important. Again, the trick could be you can use keywords or words from the RFP, the scheme or mission statement. So in a way you have to align your objectives with the overall purpose of the scheme, why the funding agency is funding. And then you can weave in, you can put together the need, current status, proposed research, and possible solution to the problem at hand in the objectives. And like I said, if you're writing like three objectives or three to five objectives, break them into smaller things, so that it becomes very clear. An example from my own work, this is a project, again I've replaced the target name with enzyme. So this we applied for Indo South Africa thing last year. It is still under processing, as in this COVID thing has taken put it back again. So the first three objectives, the first one is identification of potential enzyme inhibitors with potent anti-tubercular activity, starting from already identified hit one that exhibited reasonable potency and cellular activity. So here I'm telling that I already have a hit, and I want to develop it further, making it a lead, and then eventually convert it into a potent antitubercular agent. Mode of action and in vitro synergy studies with enzyme inhibitors identified under normal oxidative stress, dormancy-like conditions, and in macrophage. So I'm trying to give a gist of what my methodology would be, whatever I'm going to do, and what is it that I'm going to achieve. So it's like in the first one, I identify the potential potent hits. In the second objective, I study the mode of action under different conditions. And of course, the third logical thing would be ADME analysis and evaluation of PK profile following oral administration. So these three objectives kind of give a nice gist of what the proposed research is all about, and that also tells the referee that the person is, whether he's focused or the objective doesn't make sense at all, because that has something to do with your application being successful or not successful. um, it's already 12:34. I'll quickly wrap it up. Then comes the next step. The proposed methodology should be described briefly in logical sequence. Don't write too much when it is writing. You are writing the proposal methodology. Don't make don't write I will do this. You write in the passive voice, saying that it will be done, it will be carried out, it will be done, like that. Highlight the sections which are critical for achieving the objectives of the proposed work. Use flow diagrams, because those diagrams speak much more than what you are trying to write in the text. Use of Gantt charts. Of course, Gantt chart is useful when you write the timelines, because that's again a separate section. And these methodology headings could be the activities mentioned in the Gantt charts. Read about Gantt charts if you don't know about Gantt charts, or if you know, try and use it. Excel has a feature which you can, in a way, use it on a trial basis, and it helps. Once you know how to create Gantt charts, you can do it using simple Excel. You don't need any specific functionality. There are softwares specific for creating Gantt charts, but don't worry about that if you don't have access to that. Um, the activities and associated timeline should make sense. As in, if you say that you want to do say subacute toxicity studies, and if you say that you will do it in like 15 days, probably that's not possible. So your timelines and the activities should make sense. And don't forget that those who are reviewing your grants are the experts in the field. So if you try to fool them, they will not fool you. They'll simply put your proposal in the dustbin right away. The next one is, when it comes to milestones and or outcomes, one has to be very judicious in writing this. These should be the milestones should be doable, because many of the funding agencies like BIRAC, they have milestone based payments. So if you achieve milestone one, they will review it. If they are satisfied, they will disburse the payment for the next milestone. So don't end up in a situation, what is first, hen first or the egg first. It's like whether you achieve milestone first or you get money first. So in that way, writing milestone, I have learned it hard way. But then when you write milestone, just think that it is doable, it is achievable in reasonable time frame, so that you have money after achieving milestone one for milestone two. Otherwise, you can be in serious trouble actually. The next one is, I think, four more slides and we'll be done. The budget, that's very, very important. Again, when it comes to budget, you're using taxpayers' money. So you have to be very judicious. As in, when you write budget, think as if you are funding it yourself. But then don't be conjuice in, writing, or don't underwrite it, because otherwise, like it's like you have to go to moon, and then you say that you will go it in commercial fighter plane. You can't do that actually. So that's where one has to be very judicious, as in, don't ask for instruments if you don't need them for the proposed research, because at times that can work against you. But if you really need some instrument, go write it. Don't worry about the cost. As far as the cost of the research fellow or the project assistant is concerned, it's all the guidelines are fixed, so you can't really do much. But then, of course, you can plan for some unforeseen event. Suppose if whatever you are proposing doesn't work, so you have to have plan B ready. For that, you will need money as well. If you exhaust all the money right away, it won't help you in any way. So managing the funds is another different aspect, which I'm not really talking here. But when it comes to writing budget, you have to be very judicious, and at times the funding agency have a cutoff limit. So in that case, you have to fit in. So don't override the objectives, don't override the activities, because otherwise you will not be able to complete it, and that can add or that can work against you. So you have to be very judicious in writing that. The next one is, when it comes to writing relevant references, include all of them. Usually these references are not counted as like the words are not counted. Whatever you write in the references, if it is national, somebody has worked on it nationally, don't forget to write that, because if I am the referee and if you work in my area, the proposal is in my area, and if you have not included my reference, I'm just going to get mad at you, probably not recommending your, as in this is different thing, but then it's a basic human behavior or basic human tendency, and you just have to abide by that. Maybe people are not like that, but you will never know that actually why your proposal was rejected, because at times the funding agency wouldn't tell you why it was rejected. They'll simply say that it wasn't considered. Some funding agencies, they do say what was the lacuna. But anyways, when writing references, you follow the consistent writing style. You can use any style whichever you want, but consistency is important. Include the title of the paper. Don't just do not include it, because otherwise, if somebody wants to see what is the reference all about, then the title can convey a lot of things. So it's a good idea to include title of the reference in the references section. And then make sure the references are complete in all respects, the volume, issue if it is available, or page numbers. And it's a good idea to give DOI. That always helps. The next one is, perform the spell check. It's a strict no if you have got spelling mistakes in your proposal. That's bad actually. You can't you shouldn't be doing that. um, get the proposal read from some senior if you think that senior is reliable, because at times people are good at stealing ideas, so you have to take your call. I have nothing to say in that. Or someone who you trust with your life, that if you give your proposal, which could be a groundbreaking idea, if you give it to somebody to read, that person will do justice to that. Keep reading the proposal again and again. Every time you read it, you probably will modify it for good, and then eventually, till the time you hit the final submit button, keep reading. I mean, I always do that and keep on modifying, and then sometimes I feel how stupid I was when I wrote it for the first time. So keep doing that. Make it better and the best. It will help. And then just the way Sachin looks at the sky after he completes his century, when you hit the final submit button, do look up in the sky and seek his blessing, because that's also needed for sure. The next one is, like I said, good research needs good funding. So when you propose your idea, be explorative. Don't worry too much. At least they will say no, and if one agency does not fund it, probably you go to the next one. But then it's like, if your idea clicks, if you are successful in convincing the referee, the expert panel, then you might just get lucky. And like they say, dar ke aage jeet hai. So you need to keep explore, take chances, because if you remain in your shell, you won't be able to do. I mean, don't try to experiment. Look at go come out of your shell, try something which is against the norms, or something not exactly against, but something different. Don't be over ambitious. So again, this is a word of caution, as in you can't this I already quoted earlier. And like I said, you will learn eventually. No one can teach you how to write a good research proposal, but then like these webinars or FDPs will definitely help you, and we can always look out to people who can help you, who can guide you, because that's where important. It's where this is probably the last slide. So what's the take-home message? Writing a research proposal is like making a dish. So all the components of the dish, the objectives, the budget, and so you need to have right ingredients, good idea, good hypothesis, good objectives, good set of objectives, methodology, good time frame, good funding, or other the budget. So you have to have right ingredients in right proportions, in right sequence, in right manner, with right processing to test the success of getting funded. So it's if you love cooking, you will understand what exactly I mean with this statement. And like I said, you will only you keep on writing proposals. It makes you a better researcher because you read a lot. It's like somebody people I tell you, you read literature, but unless you have some reward attached to that, a reward of, say, a proposal getting funded or something, you will not do a better job. So writing research proposal will only make you a better researcher. And consistent efforts are needed. As in, one proposal, you put your soul in that, and then next one, if you don't do a equally good job, probably then that's not going to get you anywhere. Never to give up attitude. Uh, you know Always think of the worst, but then do your best, because unless you are not convinced with your own idea, your own proposal, why do you think the funding agency would be? As far as my thing is concerned, I'm just lazy. I don't write too many proposals, but so far, whatever proposals I have written, the success rate has been 2:1. So every three proposals, I wrote, two were rejected, and then one was successful. And at times, although I have told you to prepare well ahead of time, but previously I used to be like, prepare like last 15 days. You prepare. In fact, last proposal which was funded was Newton Baba Researcher Links Workshop. When I came to know about that, it was only like 15 days left, and then we had to find some partner in UK, and make sure that he agrees and initiates the application. We did that, and that application was successful because those 15 days, like, I put my heart and soul in that. I got that proposal funded. Like, most of the work was done by me. The UK partner only added his part of it, his part, like getting the signatures and all. And that proposal was successful, and we got it funded, and it's for 4 days workshop, and it's around 35,000 pounds. That's a lot of money, actually, if you see that way. So the point is, you have to do a better job, without which you will not get to test the success. Thank you so much. This is the only figure I have taken from Google. Otherwise, rest everything is all mine. If you have any questions, please feel free. You can write to me. Everything is there on the ICT profile or ICT website. All my contact details, including my mobile number. Feel free to write. It's the same number I use for WhatsApp, and please feel free. And if I can be of any help, and if I get to learn from you, I would be very, very happy. And in fact, when I started this presentation, I was telling Dr. Patrawale that I'm kind of full with that adrenaline rush, because she has been my teacher since last more than 20 years. And it's always like, I come from a place where teachers are learners first, and then they are teachers. This is exactly what I told her. So when your teacher attends to your presentation, you have to do a good job. I think I don't know, did I did a good job or not, but then the point is, I hope this presentation will help you, and I'm sure the organizers will make this presentation available to you. And feel free to write to me anytime. If I can be of any help, I would love to be happy. I'm also a registered patent agent, and in case you need some patent related help, I can help you with that as well. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Prashant.
It's
There
10
are
minutes more, actually.
n number of questions, but I am going to raise two or three questions. The
Okay.
first question from Professor Shubhangi Aher: is there any guidelines or websites for writing a research proposal?
Well, there are some from some publishers, but let me just recall. But like I said, every I think there is an academy from some elsewhere journal. I'll get back to you on this. Let me just recall this. There they do have some guidelines about the do's and don'ts of writing publications, do's and don'ts of writing the research proposals. Yes, there are websites, few dedicated websites, and they are awesome. Actually, they're really awesome.
Okay, there is a question from Dr. Bhushan Rane. What is the role of accreditation during during process of proposal sanction?
Well, that's a difficult question. In a way, I don't know if the proposals are blinded. Dr. Patravali will be able to tell. I'm not sure if they know about where the proposal comes from, but I think if you have got a good idea, irrespective of where you come from, that should do it. As in, when I was in NMIMS, although it's a good institute, very well reputed thing, but being from a private organization, there were times where we failed to understand, despite a great idea, why it was not funded. But then it has probably nothing to do with accreditation status. See, again, it's like something which is not in your control. Don't worry too much about that. Focus your energy on writing the research proposal. That will probably be of great help. If Dr. Patravali would want to add something to that.
No,
Um,
no, you have very, very correctly said it. In fact, it's the other way around. The more proposals you have, it helps you in getting accreditation. So, if you
yeah.
have a good idea, nothing comes in way of
More
yours.
yes.
Yes.
There is one more question. I think it will be last question from Professor Pallavi Tiwari. What's
Mhm.
the minimum and maximum time for, I think, research project? It may be.
Now if you again, like if you see about the COVID-19, most of the proposals they would want is like 1 year time frame, although they say a 2 year time frame, but usually between 1 to 3 years is a good time. And again, depends on how big and how small is the problem. And many times the timeline is fixed by the funding agency. Although they give you the leverage, you can finish it early, but then they'll give you funding only for that time in which you frame. So usually if you are hiring a PhD student, so ideally a 3 year timeline is good enough, and then you look for schemes which will support the student for 3 years. I mean, you don't want to hire a PhD student and write a proposal only for 1 year. So what will that student do for next 2 years? Because that's again very important. So 3 years is a good time frame. So, but then if you are an early career researchers and trying to establish yourself, small projects, say mini startup grants will probably be for a year or so. So, but then if you are looking at the young scientist grant from SCRB, so again it's for 3 years, but then no COPI is allowed in that. And then you can still hire a PhD student in that. So it all depends on the funding agency, depends on the call, and you are the best judge of what time frame should be allocated or allotted to the problem at hand. As in, you can always stretch it out in terms of including more scope, more objectives, trying to find out more applications in different areas. That would be
So
yeah.
I should not take next question, but I'm also eager to listen the answer of this question. The last question from Wahid Ablekar: Is funding from foreign agency possible? If yes, how?
Well, foreign agencies usually, I mean, of course, Dr. Vandana, she has got many foreign fundings herself. So, yeah, it is possible, but then again, right away, it may not be possible if you are an early career researcher, but it's always, it all depends on ideas. As in, many times the foreign funding agencies are more transparent in terms of evaluating the proposals, but of course, they'll look at what is your background, how far you have done in your career so far in terms of publications, in terms of successful projects. So there are a lot of different things which are needed before the idea gets funded. The idea may be extremely good, but then there's no harm in trying for foreign funding as well. It's like for smaller ones, many organizations will give you something like £5,000, $5,000. That's again a good amount of money for trying out some very small problem, and then generate some preliminary data. So yeah, don't shy away from applying to foreign funding agencies if it fits in your area, or rather if it fits with your expertise, and if you team up with some team members or collaborators, it's very much possible. Very much possible. I mean, I wouldn't advise you from shying away from not writing the foreign fundings, irrespective of wherever you are in your career.
Maybe I
Thank
can
you.
add
Thank
a
you,
little bit to it.
Dr.
So, in case Wahid, you missed the presentation, I talked about something called as innocentive. So, I encourage all the early career researchers actually to get registered on innocentive, so that whatever, even if you have paper ideas, they get funded. So that is very good way of getting seed money with which you can actually create proof of concept and move on.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Dr. Prashant. Dr. Prashant, basically your talk will be concluded by session chair, but I would like to share a quote on 3 C's of life. Those who are young and budding scientists, budding researcher, budding teachers, new teachers, chances, choices, and changes. You must take a chance to make a choice and change your life. Thank you, Dr. Prashant. Very, very nice and informative session. Now I request Dr. Vandana Patrawale, ma'am, to conclude the session of Dr. Prashant. Please, ma'am.
Excellent is a word. So if I was a teacher evaluating you, as throughout your life you have got 10 on 10, you would get CGPA of 10 on 10 here too. I'm sure. And I wish actually, at this stage that I was an early career researcher listening to you. The way you have gone about giving all the tips and tricks one by one, I'm sure would have cleared all the doubts these early career researchers would have in mind. So, wishing you all the best, Prashant, in your days to come. And I'm sure you'll keep the ICT flag and our nation flag flying higher and higher. I'm sure viewers, you'll agree with me. He's done an excellent job of taking you through the whys and hows, and very systematically taking you through all the sections which are there in a research proposal, and given you some small tricks which definitely will help you in a larger perspective. Obviously, from the evaluator point of view, what needs to be seen is again the novelty part, which needs to be kept in mind. And just like a patent is looked at for novelty, non-obviousness, and utility, even the proposals would be looked up from those 3 criteria. So just adding that, I thank you for enlightening all the viewers, and thank actually Dr. Prashant and Dr. Amrutkar for giving me also opportunity to join this session and learn and listen from you. Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't be more proud to get a pat on back from my teacher. In fact, I can fondly recall, I always tell Madam, I call her Mata and she call me Mataji, and she calls me Kidoji. That's our thing. Yeah, I remember in the summer of 1999 when we had for semester 2, I presented. We used to have a subject of seminars. So I spoke on COX-2 inhibitors, and after the presentation, she came and she patted on my back, saying that excellent presentation, just the way she did today. So you can imagine, it's more than 20 years old. I still remember that very moment as a as a photographic memory. And that's where I got to I actually got to know her, and I couldn't be more proud of myself. She did that again today. She always does that, of course. Always appreciates. So thank you so much, ma'am. I couldn't be more proud, and all the effort which was put in this, that's worth it. And thank you so much, everyone, Dr. Prashant as well, and all the viewers. Thank you so much for your time and being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant, Dr. Vandana ma'am. All the audience, all the delegates are requested to join a session of Dr. Vandana ma'am sharp at 2 p.m. I am thankful to Dr. Prashant for his valuable guidance for budding teachers. I am thankful to Dr. Vandana ma'am also for his appreciable words for Dr. Prashant. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Thank you. With this, I declare the session is over. Thank you.
Thank you so much.